It's a full moon.
Beware the moon and stick to the road. Oops.
Hey Ocean Crew, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Karen and I'm from Ocean Chicks Films. Tonight we're doing a second episode of Spooky Flicks and we're going to be looking at the film An American Werewolf in London. An American Werewolf in London from 1981. Two American tourists, David and his friend Jack, visit a local pub in London. Afterwards, while walking on the moors, they are attacked by a werewolf. Jack is killed and David tries to explain what happened, but is met by disbelief from the local authorities. Directed by John Landis, starring David Naughton, Griffin Dunn, and Jenny Agutter. This film is a weird combination of horror and comedy, and it was very unique for its time in the early 80s. And it's another one of my favorites. John Landis wrote and directed this movie, and you would remember him from things like Animal House, The Blues Brothers, and even the Twilight Zone the movie. Now, John wrote this movie back in 1969. That was over 10 years before its release. And the reasoning behind that was that nobody wanted to do it. They looked at it as a horror and a comedy together, and they didn't know how to market it, whether they would market it as a horror or as a comedy. And they'd never seen anything like it before. Such amazing horror, like terrifying horror combined with the comedy. They didn't know how people would accept it. It had a lot of crazy things in it, like talk about suicide, the graphic violence, there was sex, it had it all, and nobody wanted to do it. Finally, in 1981, he got someone to do it, and when he got Rick Baker on board to do makeup and special effects, well, he had just a smash hit. So much so, Michael Jackson saw it and thought the work they did together was so phenomenal that he begged them to work on his Thriller video for him, and we all know how successful that one was. Actually, that's a really good one to be talking about or reviewing for Halloween as well. I might have to think about that. A sequel was made to An American Werewolf in London in 1997 called An American Werewolf in Paris, but it wasn't made by the same people, and the storyline carried on, but it was about the daughter that we didn't know about of David and Jenny, and I guess she had inherited the ailment of being a werewolf from her dad, and it goes on about that, and it wasn't super well received, and it was okay, but yeah, it was a little bit weird. It wasn't the same caliber that the first film is, but it was okay, and I have to admit I have it on DVD. I usually do that. If I really love a movie, I'll buy all of the sequels just to have them. It's fun to watch them a few years down the road just to see if they're maybe not as bad as you thought they were. I think that's always a fun thing to do. Before we move ahead with this video, I'm just going to say that there will be spoilers, so if that bothers you, you might want to click off now, but if it doesn't, let's keep going. Let's chat next about some of the best parts of this film. The groundbreaking scene where David, played by David Naughton, turns into a werewolf. This film is a contemporary take on an old story, so let's back it up a little bit. David and his friend Jack go backpacking through Europe, and they're walking across the moors of London just after they left a pub. It's late at night. The full moon is out. They get attacked by a werewolf. Jack is ripped apart and killed, and David survives, but he's bitten. He's taken to a hospital. He meets this nurse named Alex. She takes care of him. They end up hooking up, and he gets a visit from his dead friend Jack, who explains to him that if you don't kill yourself, you're going to do this to other people, and we're going to be stuck in this state of limbo forever. And so he takes that horribly tragic news, he talks to her about it, and he uses a reference from an older movie, Lon Chaney's Werewolf. And in that story, which is an older version, it talks about someone who loves the werewolf can be the one to kill it and break the spell. So he's trying to convince Alex to do this for him, and that's kind of all of this suicide and killing and stuff kind of pops up. But he realizes when he talks to Jack that there's no way he can kill himself, so he's looking for other options. But time's passing by, and there's another full moon coming up, and he's recovering in her flat, and this is where the cool transformation happens, and it is so cool. In this scene, we can feel David's pain as he slowly transforms into a werewolf at the full moon. And one cool thing about this is that they left the lighting really, really bright, so it's even more horrifying because you can see every last little detail. And they've done it so well. There's no CGI, it's all FX, it's all makeup and machines, and very, very carefully put together in such a way it's absolutely horrifying, and I love it. It's one of the best scenes in a movie I think I've ever seen. All I have to say is Rick Baker is brilliant. It's so horrifying. This David's spine bubbling up as it's transforming into the shape of an animal, his hands stretching, claws growing, hair growing out everywhere, the fangs, you just hear him writhing in pain, and you can actually feel it as though you're right there with him. And in a lot of these scenes, things were very quiet, so it makes it even feel more like you're there. You don't hear that little bit of music in the background. Although he did do a lot, John Landis put a lot of moon-themed music in the film, but in certain parts he left it out, and it's very quiet, and it makes it so much spookier. Now, these makeup jobs took like a day to do. They took a really long time. They were very grueling, the contact lenses, the whole thing, all the prosthetics. But it was so well done and so realistic that the actors in the film had a hard time dealing with it. And Griffin Dunn actually had such a hard time with it. He was really bummed when he first had all the makeup on that he almost didn't want to do the role or act it out, because it just made him feel awful looking at himself in the monitors or in the mirror. It was so realistic, it just looked the way that you would look if you were decomposing and dying, and he just didn't want to face that. And then when the parents of the actors came to watch the film, they were traumatized for like weeks afterwards that it was so scary. And I think that's probably why the production companies, the studios, didn't want to pick up this film and do it for so long, because they didn't know how it would go over. But I'm so glad they did, because it's such a good film. I love this kind of thing, and I wish that nowadays a lot of these newer films wouldn't use the CGI for this kind of stuff, because this is so much more effective. So much better. Now let's talk about the subway station chase scene. So it's very quiet. It's this large subway, and I think it's at night, and there's like no one around, and there's this business guy, and he's walking along, and he suddenly gets this weird feeling like something's watching him or something's following him. And he keeps going, and then his pace quickens, and he goes faster, and you hear this weird growl, echoey sound in the distance, and you just know what's gonna happen. And then he starts to boot it to the escalator, and he starts running up the escalator, and you know something's very close to his feet. He gets knocked over and he falls down backwards, so his back's on the escalator, and he's got blood trickling down his nose. We don't see anything. We don't see the wolf. We don't know for sure that's what it is, but we know it's something horrible. And they cut the scene. And it's so terrifying, but so awesome at the same time. How many of you have had that kind of a dream? I certainly have. I know you guys have too. It's horrifying. That's scary stuff right there. I love this movie for those kinds of things. It's so awesome. All right, let's talk about the final scene in Piccadilly Square, where the werewolf is, David's completely transformed, and he's running around causing havoc, chasing everybody. So the wolf costume or machine that they created wasn't actually a full-size wolf. Very well done, but they only made him up to his waist. They didn't do the back legs. The back legs were just sort of put onto a cart so that they could maneuver him better to get around. Very effective, very scary. Another thing that's cool about this wolf is that they created him to stand on all fours. Usually, you know, before that, werewolves would be humans turned into wolves, and they'd be standing kind of upright on 2 feet. So that makes it very scary too, because you think of a wolf or a dog or something chasing and running around coming after you. That's very scary. A little fun fact, when David transforms the first time in the morning, he wakes up changed back to his human form, and he's naked and he's inside of a cage at the zoo where there are wolves. He actually did that scene with real wolves, and apparently they were fed just before he went in there with them. And the thing that he was uncomfortable because, you know, it's a little bit scary to do that. But the biggest thing was that there were women trainers that were helping to take care of the animals while he was in there, and that made him really uncomfortable, so he didn't really want to do that scene. Another fun fact, in the dream sequence, the nightmare dream sequence that David has when he's in the hospital just after they were attacked by the werewolf, there is a scene where there's Nazi zombies, and John Landis actually played one of those. Another fun fact, Rick Baker was going to do the makeup for The Howling at the same time, but it was going to be too much work to do all together, so he was advised not to. And so he passed that work over to his good friend Rob Bottin, who did it instead. All right, so back to the final scene that was done in Piccadilly Square. Is that how you say it, Piccadilly Square? I'm never sure about that. Correct me if I'm wrong. But filming there actually was logistically really difficult. They didn't want him to do it. Getting permission was really tough. So they had to really fight for that. And they finally did, and they agreed to let them film there 2 nights from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. in the morning, and that was it. So if you look at that scene, there's so much going on there. There's all the cars crashing, there's all the people, there's the werewolf running around killing people. One of the police officers gets his head bit off by the werewolf. Horrifying scene too. I just love that. So a lot of logistics, and they pulled it off. So that's pretty remarkable too. That's quite a historic kind of thing in this film. Ironically, the Brixton Riots happened right after the filming of this part, and Margaret Thatcher blamed it on the youthful hooligans. So that's kind of funny. And there was so much controversy about this movie because of the stuff that they were showing and putting out there. Pretty groundbreaking. I think that's really cool. Elmer Bernstein did the score for this movie, but they used it very little, and Landis wanted to fill this with contemporary stuff, so he wanted lots of songs that had moon in the title. Remember, I told you that, like Bad Moon Rising, Blue Moon, Moon Dance. So that's pretty cool too. I love when there's really good soundtracks to the films, and I think this one has a really excellent soundtrack. I also really love the wolf's growl and the howling in the background that you can hear too. That's very, very haunting. The dream sequences that I talked about a bit ago, the one where David has the dream when he's in the hospital recovering from the wolf attack, they're so good. They're so well done. Sees himself sitting in his home back in America with his family, and suddenly these Nazi zombies break through the wall and start attacking and shooting and killing everybody, and then it turns into a dream within a dream within a dream. Have you ever had one of those? Those are so scary that sometimes it takes like a week to recover from it. You don't want to fall back to sleep. Those scenes were so well done. I really enjoyed watching that, and they were kind of cool too. And I say cool, and what I mean by that is that, you know, when you see a movie and you're so scared that it makes you laugh afterwards because you screamed in the theater, that kind of a thing. That's what I get from this movie, and that's, I think, what I love so much about it. The storyline is really great in this film, as is the acting, and it's got sort of like a British TV drama detective kind of thing going on. The mood of the whole thing is like that too. I love those kinds of TV series to watch. Actually, myself, we watch a lot of that, and it's got that feel with it, but it's really freaky all at the same time, so it's very different. Once again, I love how things are implied and left to your imagination. It makes it so much better. The touch of the slaughtered lamb was really cool too. That's a fictitious place in the film though. The exterior was shot in front of a private cottage there, and the interior was done in a different pub, but still very effective. I love how they had pentagram on the wall and how they're walking across the moors outside. So beautiful. I'd love to go there someday. All right, and let's talk about the star-studded cast. David Naughton, the Dr. Pepper guy. That's what I remember him as. So it was really cool seeing him in this film because I knew right away who he was. That was really neat. And I thought he was really, really good in this film. And of course, he plays our main character, David. And Jenny Agutter, who plays Nurse Alex. She, I don't know if you know, but she was in the movie Logan's Run, which I absolutely love. That movie is probably second in line to Aliens for me. I love that movie. I've got to do a review sometime. And then we have Griffin Dunn, who plays Jack, David's best friend. He is a director and actor, I'm sure you guys know. He's done stuff like After Hours, My Girl, Practical Magic. I want to do Practical Magic too as a review. I think that'd be really fun. And then we've got John Woodvine, a British actor. He played Dr. Hirsch. He was excellent in that part as well. And then we've got David Shofield. He was a dart player at the Slaughtered Lamb. He's been in things like Wolfman, Pirates of the Caribbean, Gladiator, and Brian Glover, the chess player at the Slaughtered Lamb. He would be in Alien 3, if you remember that one. I do. He was really good in that role too. And Lila Kay, who played the barmaid. I love her. I feel like I remember her from so many different things, but she was in like Dear John and Murder, She Wrote. And the last person I'll mention is Rick Mayo. He was in Drop Dead Fred. I got to review that one too. I loved that movie so much. So amazing cast, absolutely amazing, very well chosen, and they did such a great job all together. I think this movie was so amazing, and for my review, I'm going to give it 5 shark bites out of 5 because it's that good. I think it's a really fun one to watch for Halloween, so I hope that you'll do that. And if you do, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I would love to chat about it. I'd love to hear. And I guess that's it for now, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to give me a thumbs up because it helps a lot, and subscribe to the channel so that you can get in on all of the Halloween horror movie reviews we're going to be doing this month. I can't believe it's already October. It's so awesome. And also my horror comic book that I'm going to put out there, bits and pieces as I go along and show you the making process of it. I love you guys so very much. I'm glad that you stopped by, and I hope that you have a great rest of your weekend. Bye, guys.